I ain't going to Myrtle's Inlet, but I'll be close. Oak Island. That's the best value at the North Carolina coast.
I know it. We have so many amazing people here from all over, and we just love it. So, guys, we would have loved to have played that whole song for you, but we want to give Leigh as much time as possible this morning. So, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our exciting Engage webinar on the latest trends and opportunities with what hasn't changed in real estate, presented by my good friend, Leigh Brown. I'm Thea Chambers, the National Market Impact Manager with Atlantic Bay Mortgage Group, and I am so thrilled to have you all here today. Whether you're joining us from your office, your home, or even your favorite coffee shop, we are so glad you could make it. A few quick housekeeping items before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation today, please put those in the Q&A or the chat box, and Leigh will try to address those during the presentation and maybe some more at the end. A recording of today's presentation will be shared within 5 to 7 business days, but unfortunately we will have to edit out the music, but we're glad you got to enjoy it if you joined early. Leigh Brown is a spunky, inspirational, down-to-earth business leader and active realtor CEO that sits on national and state realtor boards. She tells it like it is, she keeps it real, and that is what we love about her. She has award-winning books, cooking shows, podcasts, and has helped people from all walks of life achieve their sales, leadership, and relationship goals. She understands the ins and outs of the day-to-day business and funnels decades of experience into the presentation you're about to hear. We have got an action-packed session lined up for you today, and we are so thankful for our longtime relationship we have with this wonderful lady. Please welcome your very best business friend and mine, Miss Leigh Brown.
Thank you, my friend. Good morning, everybody. And the only group we forgot to welcome, Thea, was the ones who are logging in from vacation, because somebody over here said she's in Orlando and nobody goes there unless you have to take little people over to the park. So thanks for joining in. And I'm so grateful that y'all decided to tune in when you could be doing a million other things. Although right now, with the markets being very weird and wonky, you might not have a million other things to do. So we're going to talk a little bit today, and I'm going to lay out for you what I'm seeing. I'm going to share with you what I'm hearing from different parts of the country and the world. Oh, and by the way, that's not slide number 1. Look, I did not set my slides up right. Let me escape out of that for a second. But that is your podcast. Y'all could be going ahead and subscribing to that on Apple Podcast right now while I find my actual slides. But what I want you to know is that the reason for the title of our presentation being what hasn't changed in real estate is that right now, I think all of us are uber focused on everything that is changing. And when you focus on it, oh, you love my glasses. Look, these are my readers. I had to let go of my vanity today because I cannot see my own slides. So here we are. Anybody else feel me on having so much vanity? You're stuck with it? Oh, well. But when you think about the changes that are going on, it is extreme, because we're not just talking about the way that we manage compensation. It is what the consumer is hearing about us. It is the new competitors that are entering the marketplace from hedge funds and from technology. And it is the way the government is coming at us in so many ways. And it is the change of knowing there's 15 other class action lawsuits burbling, and there are new lawsuits being filed literally every week. And so we don't know what's going to change next. And then you also have, it's a presidential election year. And so the people that you love are maybe a little too vested in the presidential race or whatever race they're involved in. And everything kind of feels like this. Well, when you're starting to realize that the change can shut you down, you have to remember that survival is putting aside all of that fear. The fear comes in, though, because in real estate, we have forgotten what we do. We've never defined it very well for the consumer. And this includes every mortgage lender, by the way. So I know that a lot of y'all are realtors, that you love your Atlantic Bay people like I love mine, and they invited you in here. And I know all my loan officers are in here too. But loan officers, you're having a devil of a time right now too, because you're having to compete against websites, and we have to compete against websites, and consumers being told that none of us deserve to be paid, that none of us do anything, and we're a bunch of scumballs. I will say the most entertaining comment I've gotten in recent times, because my videos, for whatever reason, and I'm just going to drop this out there because I haven't figured it out yet. Maybe one of you technology people could. The bots and the trolls are all over my post. And I mean, in a way I've never seen before. And y'all know I run for office, so I'm used to trolls and bots. But I don't know why there are trolls and bots designed to attack real estate. I find that to be weird because all the trolls and bots are paid and they are backed by someone or something. But anyway, the most entertaining comment I saw was that the comparable job to real estate is table dancers. And I had to take umbrage to that because I don't have any business dancing on a table. I'm not sure that I had any business doing it 30 years ago before there was a race to the floor from gravity. And so when you start thinking about this, we have this very weird space where we are disrespected and attacked, and yet our phone still rings. Buyers still call us. Sellers still call us and say, what do I do? Help me with this. I don't know what to do. And they're really needing guidance. And on the loan side, I know what kind of guidance y'all have to give every day. It's people that think we're going to go back to a 3% interest rate, which isn't going to happen. But we have to walk people through the realities of where we are and then the future casting of what could happen. When you talk about the real estate side, I don't know about y'all. I still get people calling, when's the market going to crash? Are we in a bubble? And they're not thinking about the headlines because they're thinking about the numbers. And this becomes a moment to say, okay, what am I actually doing here? If there's one thing that we have failed at as a profession, it is a singular focus on real estate. We are very distracted by a million other things and we're not focused on our core business. If we were focused on our core business, we could tell people confidently what it means to be a realtor. And by the way, if you're defining yourself as a realtor by saying we adhere to the code of ethics, that means nothing to the consumer and you've got to get past that. And I say this as somebody who loves our code of ethics. I love that we started it, but because we don't live by it and we don't enforce it, it means nothing, y'all. And I'm also going to tell you something very unpopular. You have some non-realtor licensees that are highly ethical. They just don't belong to the trade association. So if you let that go and the public says, what does a realtor do? Who are you? What do I get from you? You have got to figure out how to drill it in because it's not just what you're being paid right now that is being questioned. It is your very profession and your very existence. And here's a spoiler for some of y'all. You're not hireable anywhere else. Nobody will hire you. And they're not doing it. In fact, one of my dear friends in real estate, I'm 24 years in. He is about 15 years in, so he's just a baby. He called a headhunter client of his, and this is a man who's a top producer, so they're not a 2 transaction a year. This is a 100 transaction a year guy who's just exhausted. And he called his headhunter client and he said, I need to put a resume together. I think I'm done with real estate. It's too stressful. It's hurting. I can't. And this guy makes a lot of money, but he's just done. And the headhunter said to him, well, what else have you done besides real estate? And he said, I've only done real estate for 15 years. I've been highly successful. I've done all these things. And the headhunter said, that means nothing in the resume world. Real estate is not considered a real line item on your professional resume. And he called me to tell me that because his feelings were hurt. And of course, my feelings were hurt too, because basically he was attacking me too in our effort to commiserate. So you start realizing what we have done in our professional life is so intense. We've never communicated it. So headhunters don't know what we do. You haven't told anybody what you do. And the public is now being told you're worthless. And so add all those things up. Why are you doing this business? You obviously belong here for a reason. There's a reason you've sold houses and been successful. And that reason that you've been successful is that why it is what causes you to stay in a business that's painful and where you sometimes get paid and most of the times you don't, and where you get cussed at and then they hug you immediately right after, and you're working 16-hour days while you simultaneously say it's always a great time to buy or sell. And so you're faking it while you're doing it and you don't tell anybody what you do. Why are you doing a job like this? This is a hard job. If I've had said it once, I've said it a million times to people since all of the real trouble hit the fan in October. Of course, it's easy to get your license, but it is hard as all get out to survive. So why are you choosing a survival business? I'm pretty sure I know why most of you choose it, but you haven't articulated it to the public. I think it's because you are servant leaders at heart. Because the only way you can be successful in real estate over the long haul, whether you're on the mortgage side or the sales side, is to effectively serve other people. in the way that benefits them. And you know this, if you are a scam artist, you can probably get away with it a couple of times, but you can't build a career on that in real estate because the markets will change. And when the markets change, the best keep rising and the worst just fall away. And we're in one of those moments for the best to keep rising because the markets are getting real choppy. A lot of people are going to fall away. I would rather that they decide to get better and dial into a servant leadership mindset that says, I'm going to persevere because here's what I bring to the table. So why are you different than everybody else in your marketplace? A lot of them are servant leaders. So if you're a servant leader, what makes your version of servant leadership different? For some of y'all, it is your high level of touch and empathy and your ability to really lean in and relationship build, go deep. For some of y'all, you serve by being bottom line and direct, and you bring the facts to the table, and you are never flappable. Those are different kinds of excellence. And it's one of the best things about real estate. There is room for every kind of excellence. It's why I love, if you look at the population of Realtor World USA, the 1.5 million of us, there's literally one of everybody doing real estate. And when I say one of everybody, it's one of everybody. We're a tapestry. Who cares where you came from, how much money you came from, your language, your gender, your marital status, where your zip code is? Literally none of that matters in real estate because each one of y'all has a circle that you serve. And that circle that you serve looks at you and says, oh, that's a human I trust. Is that why we're being attacked? Because real estate truly is the last great opportunity for entrepreneurism that doesn't cost an arm and a leg. Anybody can succeed if they have an ability to connect and communicate. Is that why we're being attacked? To get rid of all these little tiny businesses? So if that's what's happening in the grand scheme of things, why are you the one that's going to persevere? You have to know this. What is so unique about you that you can fight back a system bigger than you? Because I know a lot of y'all are about to hit your stride in real estate. If you remember that one of the things that has never changed about real estate, the great continue to get better because they look at this market and say, oh, this is terrible and this sucks. Okay, here we go, and keep forging. The same thing you did during the Great Recession. The same thing you did when all the COVID crap started in 2020. The same thing you did if you're old during the savings and loan crisis in the 80s, or if you're really old, the same thing you did when interest rates spiked to 21% in 1981. All of those things look like career enders, and they were for some people. For the people who said they couldn't get up in the morning, they did fall away. But y'all are here because you're the person who says, oh, I'm getting up in the morning, dadgummit. I'm gonna, you're not stopping me. The public needs to know this about you because you know what? The same spirit that leads you to serve other people and fight for them when they can't fight for themselves, which is exactly what realtors have always done, is the same thing they want from the person who's negotiating for them, for the seller, for the person who is trying to hold the deal together over repairs. They want you to persevere and be resilient. What if that was in your actual marketing? And you might even say, sure, I look good, but guess what? I also look fierce when somebody's messing with my clients. I don't hear realtors saying that. We fall into these marketing traps of just sold in 5 offers. Are you serious? Our marketing for all these years has consisted of how many houses we've sold and how cute we are. What if instead our marketing said, we actively work our tails off to help somebody else get what they want? That's what real estate is. And you know what? When we're helping somebody else get what they want, it's at our own personal risk because you have the liability, even if you've never gotten compensated on it. You've worked for people for 3, 4, and 5 years who've never bought anything. So all of your future income is risk. And the risk comes from serving well. It's the one thing I wish our trade associations were doing that they're not doing effectively. They're not defending the membership and saying, we aren't the bad guys here, but you know what? We're going to go ahead and get better anyway. That's what your message has to be. I didn't cause the problems, but I'm going to make it better anyway. And so when you figure out how to make it better anyway, this is the biggest action item you have to remember. Out of the 5, I mean, frankly, I'm probably going to tell you they're all the most important, but here we are. So when you think about your people, I mentioned before how we have one of everybody in real estate, and there's always room for one more, which I love so much. We often talk in training and in our sales practice about a sphere of influence, and that's the driest, most boring trainer language ever, because influence means something different today than it did 30 years ago. Y'all know that 30 years ago, influence meant word of mouth. Now, influence is the #1 job young people want. If you want to get depressed sometime, look at their career goals. Young people say they want to be influencers, and I die a little bit on the inside every time I read that, because it says that they're trying to build a career based on what somebody else thinks about them. I don't know that that's what you're doing when you operate. And I know this because I've watched how realtors operate. I've watched how loan officers operate. When you have that person who has tied themselves into a pretzel over MI, and the realtor tried to explain it, and the lender tried to explain it, and the customer got wildly confused, and you had a little come to Jesus meeting with each other and said something about what we're saying ain't working. We got to get this figured out because it's what's best for the person we serve, because everything you do is in servant leadership. So what if you stop thinking about that circle that you serve as a sphere that you're trying to get clicks and taps from? And what if you just think about it as your people? And you know who your people are. They're the ones that you hug at the grocery store, even if you do not have your face on. They are the people that will text you and say, hey, I heard your mama fell. How's she doing? It is the people who look at you as a holistic human being. And can we just talk about how the world needs more of that? Maybe that's why they're coming after real estate, because we are singularly the only profession I know of that doesn't really care about all the protected classes and the way that the government and the checklist people want you to think about them. You see all these people that come into your life as well as future sales, but because you see them as future sales, you start asking, tell me about your life. Got a husband, wife, life partner, special person? You got some kids, you got some grands, got some nieces, nephews, dogs, cats? Where's your mom and them? Where'd you go to high school? You spend all this time really getting to know people, and they turn into your actual friends. Cause I know every one of y'all, you have a past client in your closest friend list. You're like, I'm so glad to be real estate because I wouldn't know you otherwise. And I watch y'all at the closing table. And I can't wait to see the house when you fix it up. And I'm going to bring you some supper. And it's like all these real things that are so deeper than the transaction. That's never changed about real estate. Real estate might be talked about in the news media as a commodity item, but it's the furthest thing from a commodity item. These giant expensive houses don't mean anything until the buyer walks in and the little eyes start to sparkling, and you're like, oh Lord, there's the sparkle. This is the house. And you all know it. When you've been in the business more than 5 minutes, you know as soon as they walk in the door which one they're buying. And you can also watch when one half of the couple has made the decision and the other side has the sigh of, oh well, I guess we're buying this house. I kind of love that myself. I saw that last week with a poor henpecked husband who was never going to overcome the wife's squealing after she walked into the house that she had decided was going to be hers, and he just had to roll with it. But we see these things as realtors because we see the humans involved, we see the emotion involved, and we know that this is the most important part of real estate. For everybody that compares us to travel agents don't do the same thing that realtors do. They don't spend all the nights and the evenings and the weekends with people, in properties, in coffee shops, in cars, trying to make sense of it. With travel, it's what are my airline options? What are my flights? Help me put the dots together. What we are putting together is where they're going to eat Thanksgiving and where their kids are going to get off the bus and where mama might spend her last days. And that's why they need a ranch. You're seeing all of the pieces around the transaction. And so stop the sphere of influence talk and think about what we sell and to whom we sell it in a different way. And so if you're going to show that love to these people, you should first of all know it's not 8,000 people, because I don't care how good you are, you cannot physically have the bandwidth to be in deep relationships with everybody. You just can't. And it's no slam on you. It's just because as humans, we have limits. And I know that sounds crazy, but we do. There's research on this. I've talked about it before. It goes back to the 1990s. It's a British psychologist, and it's called Dunbar's number. And what he talks about is the human capacity for relationships. And he set the number after doing rounds and rounds of research that the average human can manage 150 relationships. Maybe the most skilled of you could manage 200. But you might sit there and say, oh, Leigh Brown, I've got way more than that. I'm like, but do you? Or do you go to church and see somebody and you're thinking, oh crap, I can't remember their name. Well, that person's not in your 150 if you can't call their name. It doesn't mean you don't love them and take care of them and want to be their resource and become their friend, but they're not your tight circle. It's okay to acknowledge certain people hit your inner circle and other people are in the tertiary group. That's okay. You can still serve them too, but you have to let go of trying to be all things to all people and think about these 150. And you really got to take care of that tight circle because they're the ones that you are real estate to them. So I see my friend Betty on here. I can tell you right now that if one of her past clients walks up to her in her town, they'll be like, look, I got a question about real estate. And then they're going to ask you something that might even be wildly inappropriate because they know that you're the super trustworthy person. All right. So I'm going to remind you right here that for all of the ghoulish people out there that seem to be celebrating the number of realtors that may decide to get out of the business, I do not celebrate people getting out. I think it's terrible because I think about somebody like Betty and her little circle. If she's not in the business, y'all, who will those people go to? Who's their trusted resource? And you might say there's realtors everywhere. Yeah, there are. But who are they going to trust? If you are the person that is trusted by a circle of people, then you have to decide, how do I continue to serve and take care of these people so that they can get what they want? And if I'm gone, who replaces me? Well, look around your market. You probably have some decent agents. You probably have some other decent loan officers, and they're not hurting anybody, but they're not knocking the cover off the ball. Have you invited them into a sales meeting? Have you invited them to come with you and go to a class somewhere so that they can make a choice to go next level so that if you get out, there's somebody to replace you? All of us should be thinking about the replacement needs of our professional lives. How do we keep bringing good people in so that our circle can be served? So now that you're thinking about, how do I serve this circle? Well, you're going to have to call them. And can we say thank you to the lawsuits? What a perfect reason to call people. And I know y'all are thinking, I ain't doing it. Yeah, you are. Because what you need to do is pick up this phone. And I know that you already know this, but if you go to the little handheld looking thing, there's a keypad on there. You could dial somebody's phone number. You could mash that little green circle. They might even answer. Oh, what? I know your 150 are very likely to answer the phone. It's one of those tests that will tell you if somebody's in your circle, if they answer the phone when you call. And then here's what you're going to ask them. If you want to know the script right now, it's, hey, Travis, hey, it's Leigh Brown with One Community. How are you? Although you should use your name and company. And then you will say, listen, just wanted to check in and see if you had any questions about real estate. And the reason I'm phrasing it like that, and I never used to make the phone calls because I didn't want to sound like a cheesy salesperson. I did never want to sound like I came out of all the coaching programs I've been to. Not my style. I'm an introvert. I don't want to be a gross salesy person. But you notice the question is, do you have any questions about real estate? Not about buying and selling, about real estate. I want to know, are they paying attention to the top line headlines? Do they know anything's changing in our business? If y'all know James Dwiggins, he's the CEO of Next Home, probably one of the smartest people in real estate. He's got a podcast called something, I can't remember, but you could look it up. He did some work with some smart people. They did some surveys. They're estimating that around 25%, 25, like a quarter of the public knows anything's going on around real estate. Now you're thinking, Leigh, that's impossible. Everybody knows. Well, no, because we live in a real estate silo. We live in our people. We have our little echo chamber. And so we're all talking about it all the time because it impacts our day to day. But the people I sold a house to 10 years ago who have no intention of moving, if they see a real estate headline, they're liable to just go on past it because that is not their day-to-day life. Think about that, y'all. And so when I'm making these phone calls to my people and I say, you got any questions about real estate? Well, when I called Barb, she was like, no, but we did just get the grading done for our new compost pile. And I said, no, tell me about that. So she told me what she's doing on the property because she just told me right there, nothing that's happening is impacting her bandwidth. So this allows you to say, all right, if you call some people and realize they're not focused on it, maybe you shouldn't focus on it all the time either. So we take a step back and check on people, because I've been their realtor for 24 years. They named their daughter after me. Not even lying about that. It's the coolest moment ever, real estate ever. So I know I'm their realtor, but I want to be in front of them so that if they do notice these headlines, they still can come to Leigh Brown. You got to have that mindset. I'm going to cement my position in the center of my people so that if they read a headline, they come to me. You do not want them going to the interwebs to look for answers to their real estate questions, because God knows they might land in that stupid Facebook group called Real Estate Masterminds, where I have yet to see a mastermind. And then they watch that public group and say, what in the name of God is happening with these people? Because you want to know how bad we look at that Facebook group. And if you're in it, get out of it right now. It's not doing you any favors. I want my people to come to me. So that's why I make outbound calls. And for those of y'all that say, but Leigh, you're old. Yeah, I know. And you're not working with millennials. Yes, I do work with millennials and even a Zoomer. I've got a Zoomer under contract right now, although really his dad's been driving the train, but here we are. I'll call him. He never answers. And so then I text and say, hey, Tori, hey, I just called you. Call me back. I got a question. Then he'll call me. He only wants to talk after I text him and say, that was me. Call me back. To be the person that understands how to get to them is a very powerful thing. But also the thing I like about a phone call is I can be done in like 25 seconds instead of 5 pages of unconfused and text that nobody's listening to. So then I also like to do pop buys, but I just call it visiting because I'm Southern, and I'll just stop by somebody's house. And for those of y'all that don't want to, get over yourselves, because I'm not talking about knocking on doors of strangers. I'm talking about your 150. All right. So just remember, we're not talking your whole newsletter list. We're talking your best people. And you show up at the door. And if they're not there, they probably have a little ring doorbell. And I love those. I love that technology, y'all, because I can mash the button and I say, hey, it's Leigh Brown. Hey, I was just stopping by because I was showing a house down the street and I remembered you were over here and just checking on you. You might not even be showing a house, although if you make a showing appointment, you're no longer lying. But if you stop by and just wave at the app, if they're busy, they don't answer you back. But then you showed them, I know where you are. I thought about you and wanted to say, hey. A lot of times they'll pick up on the app and say, hey, we're not there, but sorry we missed you. And I'll say, I'm sorry I missed you too. If you need me to come back, I'll come back. Like, oh, no, we don't need anything. We just, wish you could have said, hey, all right, please give me permission not to come back because I don't want to. But I give them a chance. We're in the same space. Who else is doing that? Nobody. Nobody is. Because more realtors are scared and hiding than are out there doing the everyday things that have always worked. And if you want to ask me why this still works, y'all, it is presidential election season. Has your door been knocked on yet? Because if it hasn't been, it's going to be. Every campaign has all of these people out, armies of door knockers. Who you voting for? Here's some information, blah, blah, blah. Why do you think they do that? Because it works. And what have we said in real estate? We'd rather go to Zillow and buy some leads. What's wrong with y'all? What's wrong with y'all buying leads off the internet when you could be in your car going a street over from where you live to tap on the door and say, hey, come on now. Are we in our own way sometimes, y'all? Has technology interrupted our relationships that much? Maybe we should uninterrupt it. But if you don't want to uninterrupt it, think about the video aspect. Look, video. Go to my camera, go to video, or even cinematic, which if y'all are noticing, that's how I'm cutting all my videos now. Put it in selfie mode and say, hey, Barb, I just stopped by. I missed you. I hope you're good. 5-second video text. I'm out. Hey. And if you really want to be smart, don't put her name in and just say, hey, just checking on you. If you let me know if you need anything, just thinking about you, and send it to all of them. That sounds personal, even if it's not. Technology can be your friend. Video is so powerful because it's your voice, it's your eyes, it's you. And even if you're not good at video, it's really hard to screw up in 5 seconds when you're just saying, hey, and texting it. Just think about the ways that you can visually and physically be in front of people, whether it's in person or it's on technology. And then when I talk about being where people are, this is the visibility piece that I really, again, I think this is interrupting our visibility, because it feels good to have 1 million views on the internet, but I don't care about those million views. I want to know if the business owner across the street from me, so I'm in my office in Concord, there's a bakery right across the street. And yes, I had a peach cobbler cupcake for lunch yesterday. Sue me. I went over to go see Lori because I felt like peaches are a fruit and counted as lunch. But when I went to go talk to her, am I going to have more power by talking to her or by Instacarting that cupcake? Y'all, we are Instacarting when we could be at the grocery store saying hey to our neighbors. We are door dashing when we could be at the Mexican restaurant talking to that young couple that started the restaurant of their dreams. What are we doing? You're actually paying a convenience fee to interrupt your own business. What are you doing? Stop it. Just stop it. I know you probably didn't want to go sit at the Mexican restaurant and smell like fajitas. I get it. That was the price I paid on Monday night because I wanted Mexican. And I told my husband, we're going to go to the new place and say hey to the owners. And we came home smelling awful. And you know what? I did laundry. Problem solved. Has never changed in real estate. I don't care what the technology does. It's not as strong as I am because I'm number 5. I'm the human. I can walk in the door and y'all, the owners of this new restaurant is so cute. Like they're so excited. It's their dream place. They put some shiplap behind the bar. She was so excited to show me around the whole place. Cause you know what I said to her? I said, hey, I live here and my husband and I wanted to come check out your new business. Give me the nickel tour. Cause we always like to go with the old people at 5 o'clock. So, you know, I'm an early bird special now. She gave me a little tour. She was so proud. It's just coming off her whole aura, how proud she is that she and her husband have hit the moment where they could start their own restaurant. How many other customers come in and ask the owner about the business? They just show up and eat and tip and leave. And that's great. I'm going to rise above that. That's your number one thing that's always helped you succeed. Don't stop it now. And how much more does it cost me to spend 10 extra minutes and be kind? Uh-huh. You know the answer. All right. So now I forgot to check my questions up here as I'm preaching at y'all about your poor habits. I'm going to give you a tip here that I got from a meme, and memes to me are one of the best resources we have available in today's world. Start every phone call with my phone's about to die now. And there are a couple of people that are rambly and I love them, but they're rambly. And so I always say this to them, or maybe every other time so they don't know. And so now if you rat me out, we can't be friends anymore. But this will save your life. And then when they are in the loop of their story, like my aunt that has dementia, we call it the loop because she repeats herself nonstop. And if they're in the loop of something, you just can hang up and you already warned them. So you're off the hook, but just don't do it while they're asking the real estate question. That'd be bad manners. All right. Oh, somebody said they don't have 150 people. Yeah, you do. You just don't think about it in the right way. Here's where you start. Look, and I don't care where you live. All right. So this applies whether you have grown up in the place where you are now, or if you are in a new city. All right. Where'd you go to high school? Get out your yearbook and start going through everybody that you're friends with and figure out who you're still friends with. And it could be a million miles away. All right. Now I am where I am, but I used to live in Grapevine, Texas. And so there are people in Grapevine that I still talk to. And there are people in Iowa when I lived in Iowa that I still talk to. And you know what? When they need real estate, do you know who they call? They call Leigh Brown. They say, who do I use? And I say, hang on just a minute, Pumpkin. I got a name for you. So your out of state people can be a referral source. They can still be in your 150. All right. We forget this sometimes because we let our relationships get interrupted. So start with high school and then think about your husbands or wives or whoever you're sleeping with, who their family are. Make sure that the people in their family that you enjoy are on your list. How about the parents of your kids? My kids' friends never knew me as Leigh Brown. I'm Cora's mom, Timmy's mom, but I have a mom text thread, and my husband had the ball coach text thread from coaching the rec league ball. Those people are probably in your 150. People from your church, synagogue, mosque, wherever it is that you worship, that could be in your 150. It can be the dry cleaner that you talk to. It can be your pickleball group. Look at your life. Look at your Facebook page and figure out who it is with whom you're interacting. That's where your 150 come from. And maybe just today you have 50 because you're not great at relationships. All right. So if you're not great at relationships, highly recommend that you read the Dale Carnegie book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It never goes out of style. It is classic advice. And then you think about where you can get dialed in. Rotary Club, maybe it's Toastmasters, maybe it's the Arts Council where you live. Find a place where you have passion and start building out your 150, not based on houses, not based on buying and selling, but based on who you enjoy. The most important thing about your 150 is they should be people you enjoy and that you can talk to. I promise you, you have more than you know. And you could also look at your phone, because in this phone is something we used to call a Rolodex. Go to your contact manager. All right. You've probably got 455 people in here, even if you don't like people. So you're going to say, all right, let me look at this one. And I'm going to look at this name and say, who is that? And if I can tell you her name, her husband, her kids, something about them, they might be in the 150. It could be that I pull a name up and I'm like, oh, I don't remember who this is at all. Okay, so if you don't know who they are, why are they in your phone? And maybe at that point, you just go ahead and delete them, because our phones should be full of people with whom we have relationships. I know that's a long answer to that question, but the biggest thing you have to realize is you have a circle, but you maybe just never identified it as such because you were trying to call them all past clients, and they're not all past clients and not going to be, because sometimes the ones that you love the most, and I'll give this example, like some of y'all have known me a long time. One of my dearest friends in the world, he and his husband have done several transactions in real estate. I have never been their realtor because Robert is one of my dearest friends I've ever had in life. His husband's wife is not wife, that would be very complicated. His husband's sister is a realtor. They have to use his sister in order to go to Thanksgiving. But here's the catch. Robert does not like his sister-in-law. She's not his favorite human. So when somebody at work says real estate, he says so to me. So think about that. You're 150, because sometimes we, as people who get aggravated, say, well, how dare you use somebody else? You're dead to me. Okay, so don't cut people off from your life because of any disagreement. Encourage disagreements, encourage robust relationships, because you don't know where your next connection is going to come from in that 150. It's truly the most important thing I can tell you is that you don't cut somebody off because they used a different local realtor. Okay. Oh, let's see. Oh, look, here's Betty with a cute note in the chat. If y'all didn't see it, keeping microwave popcorn and Pop-Tarts in the car. But girl, it's going to be 97 today. It's a dangerous day to have popcorn in the car, but it is a whole grain food, so that's good. And let's see. Bill says, according to the Wall Street Journal, the average person knows 611, but the median knows 472. Are you like giving us a math quiz here, Bill? You're so sneaky. But you have more than that in your phone, y'all. I will tell you this, it's a misnomer about real estate that in your training, you're told to capture everybody, add them to your database, go to an open house, 10 people come, capture the names and the emails, boom, they go in your phone, they go in your database. That's not your people. Those are newsletter names. You're not influencing them. They don't know you from Adam. And so you're just adding them to your list. And that's okay. It's mass market media. What good is that doing you? And for those of y'all that understand hunting and firearms, it's the difference between a shotgun and a rifle. A shotgun has all these pellets in it, and when you fire it, it may or may not hit anything. And if it does, it may or may not do any damage. A rifle is one shot, one target. And so if you hit it, you hit it. And if you don't, you don't. That's the difference. Your 150 should be rifle targets. You know who you're talking to and about what. You're not just spraying and praying. So you got to think about things a little bit differently. And really, I want you to think very focused. The things that we wish our trade association would do, be focused. You got to do it in your business. So when I'm thinking about how I'm going to make this happen, I'm busy, you're busy, life gets in the way. Then we make excuses. Well, I don't know if I remember this lady. It's in my phone. What am I going to do? Be like my cute girl in the picture here. What's she doing? She's smiling. She's at home, got her orange juice, being healthy and stuff. You call one a day. This is my rule in my office, is one a day. That's all you have to do. Because how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, y'all. It's not hard. So I want you to just start somewhere. And truly what I tell the agents I coach is start with the A's and just call one. And for those of y'all that have call reluctance or prospecting reluctance, you will find out that they don't actually hate you and they don't cuss you out. They're not mean and nasty. And you're like, oh, well, I'm glad I called Anna. You know what you then do? You generally call number 2. And then maybe you call number 3 and then you get cussed out. Well, that's going to beat you down and you'll stop. But you know what? You got something done. And just add it up, y'all. If you make 1 call a day, you made 30 calls in a month. Over the year, you made 360 calls. So if you know 365, so if you know 472 people, in a year and a half, you could call all of them one time. And I don't mean to be ugly, but that's more prospecting than y'all are doing right now. So you just as well do it. The name of the book that I mentioned, Christy, is Dale Carnegie's classic, probably from the 70s. I don't know what year it's from, but it's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And you've heard it referenced by life coaches and comedians. Legit, get that book, read it, and start thinking about what you can change in your day-to-day perspective. It's not about big changes, y'all. It's tiny little moves that take you in the right direction. So 1 call a day is more than you're doing right now. And you know what? It will eventually grow into something really dramatic. And it starts with 1 phone call a day. And then you're the advanced one who makes 2, you're going to go a little faster. Maybe you make 5, you're really going to take off. And now you know what to say. Hey, got questions about real estate? By the way, if they start asking you about the lawsuits, you can send them to facts.realtor. Send them to the place where NAR is putting up the press releases. You don't have to explain all the lawsuits, although to be fair, the way that I explain everything is that the realtors didn't cause this problem, but we are sure being attacked as a bunch of tiny local micro businesses. And so I'm kind of mad at the DOJ. I'm very mad at the DOJ. I'm very mad at the CFA, and I'm mad at the National Association, but I don't care about them. I care about you, my buyer seller. So tell me what you need. Make sure you let the world know that we didn't do this. They're doing it to us. Oh, they already had a slide I was talking about. Facts.realtor. As a lender, a realtor, a broker, your updates are here. They keep adding some updates periodically. You can send the public here. They can get information. Okay. So take it off yourself. You don't have to be an expert on it. Send somebody there if they have questions, and you bring it back to, hey, let's talk about what's happening in Virginia Beach. Let's talk about what's happening in the Metroplex. Now, if you're thinking, all right, how do I take this information? How do I start loving my people and getting these ideas out? And what am I doing? Here's a freebie for you. You know, free stuff is good. There's some content ideas for social media. No, you will not be Leigh Brown. We don't want you to be you. But this is just some ideas for ways to get some good content out there that's not just sold. I'm number 1. Maybe instead you're talking about what you bring to the public, your servant leadership, what you do in your community. Maybe you post that you had a cupcake for lunch. There's content ideas that talk about the different ways you can get a message out there that is positive and productive and different than everybody else. So if you didn't grab that QR code because you really weren't paying attention right now, it's at the end too. All right, so let's talk also about how our third item here is knowing your markets. Has never changed in real estate. Great realtors, great lenders understand the markets. Data helps you. And knowing the data, especially right now, because our markets are choppy. Austin, Texas is a full-on buyer's market now. You still have multiple offers in Richmond, wildly different marketplaces, which means the media, not the best place to go because the mainstream is talking about national real estate things, which is ridiculous. It doesn't exist. NAR, national organization, nothing to do with your local market. Drive home the point at all times that you are a local expert. By the way, if you are a lender, the smartest thing you'd be doing right now is talking about how future rate cuts bake in right now. So if you heard about more rate cuts coming from Jerome Powell, the market is already baking them in. This is not going to be some magical panacea in December. 99.9% of the public do not understand that, which includes most realtors and most loan officers. And so if you're the one who does understand the relationship with interest rates in the marketplace and how everything gets baked in, what a great time to talk about that in your social aspects, or to come to a real estate office sales meeting and say, hey, realtors, for those of y'all that aren't super dialed in, let me give you the down and dirty. When I'm talking about the down and dirty, this is the primary resource I use. It's called Altos Research. The website's right there on the screen. There is a discount code on my website because I told them they needed to give me one. I pay $79 a month for this. It's not a huge investment, but I can do zip code specific reports to help people understand what's happening in the market right now. And it takes some of the pressure off because our MLS data is very good, but the public has a little bit of distrust with it because we, the realtors, own it, and it's also being attacked right now. So what I can show them is, here's what's happening right here. Forget the Journal, forget Bloomberg, forget the Times. I'm worried about this zip code right here. Here's our scoop. That's a game changer for your market. And by the way, when you look at websites that like to spit out numbers like Zillow and homes.com and realtor.com, well, that's all well and good, but they don't know what's happening with the DOT and with the water and sewer situation in town and with zoning and new builds, but you do. It's got to come out of your mouth at some point that the data is one story, but the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would have said, comes from the person who is the boots on the ground, who goes to planning and zoning meetings and goes to county commission meetings. And by the way, if you're in real estate and you are not paying attention to planning and zoning and you're not paying attention to your local county commission meeting, you got to change that right now, because that's how you also drive home the point that real estate is multifaceted. It's a great way to think about things. Realtytrack.com is where you can track foreclosures, pre-foreclosures, short sales, auctions, help people understand that there's always going to be a little of that in any marketplace. And they don't have access to most of it because the bulk of the banks sell those properties to investors, hedge funds. And yes, they should be concerned about that. But again, we, the realtors, didn't cause some of these problems. You kind of want to wake the public up as you talk to them so they understand we're a target right now. I'm not sure the public has grasped yet that the target on the realtors is hiding other actors doing whatever they want. FHFA.gov is where you can direct somebody to the Federal Housing Finance Agency and they can watch the HPI, the Housing Price Index, understand where the conversation is. Now, if you're the person who doesn't do graphs and charts and data, you threw up in your mouth a little bit when I showed this. You're like, oh my God, I can't. Yeah, you can. So you can just ask people when you're talking to them, how much data do you want from me? Because some of your clientele, some of your prospects will say, oh, I'm an engineer. And then you cried a little bit because you know what you're dealing with next. Say, I want all of it. But then you might be talking to little Miss Frou Frou, soccer mom, likes to run the pickup line, and all she wants is to take care of other people's business. She might not want any data. And she'll say, I don't need any of those data. Just tell me who lives over here. If you start paying attention to what your sphere and your prospects want, you can start delivering what they want. So maybe for that listing appointment for the engineer, you have your MLS, your 3 comps, but you also bring a zip code report. You also bring a pre-foreclosure report. You also show what the HPI is. Now you just blew their socks off because your competition won't do it. And if there's anything I know right now, it's that realtors are very anxious to get more listings because they feel more comfort there. So here's how you win more. Win it with data. And by the way, FHFA.gov, no cost to that. That's public data. Realty Track, I'm cheap. I use the free version. You can buy some if you want to, but I can get enough on the maps to get my story across. Now, I want to show you one thing inside your MLS that's very important. And also want to remind you that as you hear more opportunities to get out of MLS and just use things like Zillow, I would just like to remind you that that's where they get their information, y'all. I mean, you realize if our MLS gets compromised and people stop using it, do you really want to go to 300 websites and hunt for stuff and add it in yourself? I mean, if you do, then that's great. But I don't. I love that we have a wonderful resource for members, and I want to make sure we keep that data source robust. So when I'm looking in there, though, there's a report. I'm in a CoreLogic MLS, and if you are, then you'll understand what I'm looking at here. If you're not, ask your MLS provider what you have that is similar, because you'll have something similar. This is called SAM, Statistical Analysis Module. Most realtors never click on it because they don't really want to do statistical analysis. Almost all members of the MLS, and I know this from talking to MLS providers, you log in, You pull your 3 comps and you move on, or you add somebody to a VIP search and you move on. I want to use the data to benefit my clients because real estate is servant leadership. So in there, there's a report you can pull in SAM. You can change the delta for time frames and for what you're looking for. I pull month over month data. Most realtors, when they run something, are doing year over year because the numbers are going to be bigger. And frankly, year over year tends to show a smoother line. I want the choppy line because I want to show my seller that the markets are choppy. Right now, they're very choppy in the greater Charlotte market. And Sheila can back me up on that because it's weird. The house might have interest right away. It might be 3 weeks and you never know which house. And it's just odd. So I want to show my prospective seller over time you're up, but in that overtime, when you sell means you might be selling on an upswing, a side swing, or a downswing. So if we put you on the market today, if prices continue to go up, are you going to be mad at me? And they're like, no, I got to sell. All right. I just told them they might be losing money in the future if they sell today. There's a lot of people in the public right now that are mad at realtors for not telling them that, y'all. The ones that are mad they sold in 21 and prices are a lot higher now. Well, you didn't have a crystal ball, but you also never said to them prices could continue to go up. And so I say that to a seller. And I say it also could go down after today. And so if you have to sell, this might be the high water mark. So we have to be in front of any downward swing. Are you cool if we have to go under a declining market? Seller says, I got to sell. I just told him he might get less than he wants because the market may move. This is so important. No app, no fly-by-night Uber driver unlocking doors is ever going to explain the intricacies of the market. You have to. It's never changed. This is the main job of the realtor. It is not taking photos of the house. It is not setting up a search in the MLS and being lazy. It is explaining what's happening to the market, explaining that real estate markets are fluid, explaining that these are long-term investments and what the interest rates can mean to them. You've got to be more intent about what you're providing. That's the most important thing. And so if you're going to really show that intent, get better at asking questions. And we're going to have to be honest with ourselves. You going to be honest with me? Were you as good at asking questions during the COVID era as you should have been? You know you weren't. And I know why realtors got a little bit compressed on their timeline. It's because you had to. Somebody called and said, OMG, I found the perfect house over here on Sugar and Wine Road. And yes, honey, I got one under contract on Sugar and Wine Road, best street name ever. And so when I pulled the house up, I said, oh Lord, we got to get over there because it's going to get away. And you remember, you had to look at the showings. It was one appointment left. You grabbed it. You ran over there. The deadline for the offers was in an hour. You ran to get the offer together and you were explaining as you went, but you were explaining like this. And did they absorb all of it? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? Now that the markets are normalizing, you can be at your best game on asking questions. What is this buyer planning to do with the house? How long are you going to stay there? That's what should drive the interest rate conversation. How long are you going to hold this house? Talking to sellers about the ups and downs of selling and where you're going to go. What are your options? What do we do about buyer agent compensation? What are your thoughts on that? Slowing down and asking more open-ended questions. That's going to be a huge key. And it's also what the best realtors have always done. Now, when you start asking questions, you're going to get the cherry pick now. And, you know, for years, I've been telling y'all, don't be cherry picking. Well, now I get to say, well, now you need to, because as you ask questions, you're going to find people that don't want a realtor anymore because they read some thread on Reddit, which is the dumpster fire of the internet. They said, I don't need a realtor. They're not worth more than $25 an hour or whatever. And you might say to that person, well, we're not a fit. Bye. Look, if you run into people that don't want to compensate you, don't take them on as clients. Let them find somebody else in the marketplace. Let them represent themselves. Come on, y'all. You have been the whipping boy for a long time. You took it. You got yelled at. You've had people ugly to you, didn't want to pay you, looked at you at closing and said, you're not worth it. Maybe, just maybe, you stop working with those people. Now, I am not suggesting that you violate fair housing. We're not talking protected classes, because if I may say something that's going to make Bill Hitchcock cringe, and if you know Bill, he's about to cringe. Assholes are not a protected class. Why are you working with jerks? Stop it. The people that are ugly online and say awful things, why are you taking them on? Come on, man. When you're explaining agency, now is the time to say, this is the two of us together. It's a two-way street. If you pick me and I pick you. You hear that? If you pick me and I pick you. Let them know that you have the right to run a business that makes sense for you. You're going to say what you charge. They're going to say they'd rather pay this one. Y'all can have a meeting of the minds, Shazam. Or you could say, this is what I charge. And they say, I ain't paying nothing. Then you need to say at that point, I wish you all the best. Thank you so much. Because you have the right as a business owner to charge a fair rate based on the market. The market determines your rate, not some shady government agency, you. And this means you get to tell people confidently that you're worth it. And frankly, by now you should have shown it, because now they understand more about why you do the business because your marketing has shifted. They understand you better because you have asked good questions. They understand the market better because you're explaining it. And now if you have people that are ugly to you, even after all of that, you need to not take them into your life. And y'all got good comments over here. Sharon, I don't know that I'd say they usually change their attitude. There are some that will change their attitude, but there are some people that come in with no desire to work with you, and you need to not say yes to that anymore. And Vicky is right, because you do have a limited amount of time in your day. You do need to safeguard it, which also means if you are newer in the business, let me just go ahead and tell you, the people who insist you must work on your birthday, New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve, Rosh Hashanah, whatever your most important day is, the people who insist that you must show them a house or they will find somebody else, let them find somebody else. Because the people that are ugly about it never close, and they say they've got a paper sack full of cash. They don't. We all know this. Don't take it. But we don't violate fair housing. So just be very clear about that. And when you learn how to say no, you kind of remember how kind it is when Simon Cowell would say no back on American Idol. He wasn't being ugly. He was letting them know they really didn't have the, what do the young people say, the riz to make it. Well, that was probably better for them. Their mama should have told them that before you put them on TV to embarrass themselves. Sometimes saying no is the good thing. The buyer who says, I only have $100,000 to spend and I need 10 acres and a 2-story white mansion, and you get to say, no, baby, not happening. Instead of leading them on, don't lead them on, just end it. So the last thing I have to remind you of, that's not changed in real estate, but we need to be thoughtful about, you have to figure out how to take care of yourselves. And I don't care what that looks like, but it can't look like what we're doing right now, which is 24/7 real estate. It cannot look like you don't guard your birthday, your faith holidays, your favorite, well, Halloween or Following, as Thea would say it. You've got to protect what matters to you. And I hope you matter to you. You're going to have to get yourself to spend 10 minutes outside in the sunshine. Sunshine is the best thing ever for a foul mood. Take a few steps to the end of the driveway and back. I don't care if you run a marathon, but let your body move a little bit. You don't even have to be with anybody. Or you notice this lady here does not even have AirPods in. She's just listening to birds and bugs. And there's something about that. But we have been terrible about that as a profession. You've worked yourselves to the bone and you forgot. Your phone will actually help you out. You put it in airplane mode, it won't buzz and ding and ring. And then an hour later, you'll pick it up, and all those people just had to wait an hour to hear from you, and that was okay. But in that hour, maybe you were able to think and journal and process or pay attention to your data and be a stronger agent, be a stronger lender. What could you do with an uninterrupted hour? Well, find out. And you know what? If it's taking a nap, that could be your body talking to you. All right, here's your downloads right here. If you did not get my content map before, it's right here. My intake sheets, all the stuff that you know I have, it's all in the same place because I'm either efficient or disorganized, but whatever. All of my downloads are in one place. Go grab them. It is going to ask you to review me. I only want 5 stars. If you have something ugly to say, please keep it to yourself because I can't handle negatives right now because of the internet trolls. And it's going to ask you to give me your email. I'll sign you up for my newsletter, which I send out when I feel like it. And sometimes that's 3 in a week and sometimes it's every other week. I just never know until the moment hits me. But after you grab that QR code, or if you're allergic to QR codes, leighbrown.com/resources. And now that you're sitting there going to the QR code, flip over to your little podcast app or Spotify or wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you're subscribed to Lending Forward, because if you enjoyed this session, well, you know what? They're going to come interview me in just a minute here. We're going to have our own episode coming up. So there's a reason to get subscribed. And most of y'all have forgotten to do it. So do it right now before you forget. And if you're an Apple person, it's that little purple square with the little man with the halos or whatever. Go find Lending Forward and get subscribed. I don't know Melody, but if you look up James Dwiggins, you could find out. It's a very good podcast that I can't call the name of because I'm middle-aged and that's what we have. But yeah, I'm gonna turn it back over to you while they're all getting subscribed to Lending Forward. And most importantly, everybody, thank you for spending some time with us. Thank you for giving Atlantic Bay a shout, because I'm just going to remind you, if this is not your favorite lender, they're on my list because I have the best loan officer ever. But I want you to know that anytime a lender invests in making you better at your business, give them a shot at showing you what they can do for your clients too, because that's who they also want to make the consumer better. So I'll turn it over to Thea now.
So much, Leigh. And I have one last question for you before we wrap up.
Right.
So, because of all of the changes and everyone trying to get a little bit more of the pie, even if it's a peach pie, how can realtors and lenders work better together these days?
Well, first of all, you can talk to each other. And when I say talk to each other, I mean, if you're a realtor, you don't just call your lender and say, oh my God, you got to pre-approve somebody right now. Okay, that's kind of ugly if you're screaming at them on Saturday afternoon, because your lenders often have a life too. So you should also check in with your lenders and ask them what they're seeing. What are they hearing? Oh, I see Terrence Guess is on here. Y'all know he is the king of the down payment assistance, the credit help for people, the first timers, most patient man that probably ever lived. But you need to know what's happening with his wife and kids too, so that you can care for each other. That's very important. But it also means if you're a realtor, you should have already been on the phone with your lenders. And I don't care who your lenders are, although one of them should be Atlantic Bay. And you should have asked them already, if I have a buyer and they want me, and all they have scratched up is their FHA 3.5%. Do you have a way that we can figure out how to handle compensation? You need to have these conversations before you encounter the buyer that is going to have to pay you themselves because the house they want does not offer compensation. And so you don't wait till you're in a panic on Saturday afternoon. You talk to your lender on a Tuesday and say, hey, what are we going to do? What's our game plan? Do you have a loan type? Is there a way to fix the concessions? What do you have? Every lender I've talked to knows that this is an important topic for realtors, to protect our first-time buyers, to give our down payment assistance people professional guidance. They're working on plans, but you, the realtor, need to reach out to them. And if you're the lender, that should be your sales meeting topic that you call the broker and say, you want me to come talk about the ways that we can figure this out? Because I know that we'll figure it out. I don't like the changes. It's making things less efficient for the consumer, but we're going to figure it out, because I know that if y'all are like me, you believe that every single neighbor we encounter in our communities should have an opportunity to chase the American dream if that's what they want, and that nobody should be left out of that chase. And that's between the realtor and the lender to make that happen. It's a long answer to your question, but call your lenders.
Leigh, that was a great answer, and we appreciate you more than you know. So thank you all so much for attending this energetic session today, and a very special thank you to our special guest and our dear friend, Leigh Brown. We appreciate you very much. Please stay tuned for future Engage webinar offerings, and make sure to tune in to our Lending Forward podcast. Again, it's on all major platforms: Spotify, Apple, Amazon, YouTube, and Instagram. We appreciate your time and we value your participation. And from myself in Atlantic Bay, thank you so much for joining us, and have an amazing day.
Thanks for having me. All right, people, go do good things in your communities, and I'll see you next on Lending Forward.